minority majority communities are really interesting, I think. And to Mandy's point, I doubt that that community is centered in the conversations of the theater scene there because of the world that we live in and because of the way the Western world works. I don't know the New Mexico scene, but my hope is that at the very least, the minority majority are the stories that are being told. But like, go.
Just going to say, because I know it's uncomfortable for other people to say, so I'm going to voice it myself. I knew that Black people would experience racism in our community. I'm not delusional.
Yeah, anti-Blackness.
I did not realize the extent to which Latinos experienced racism within our community.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to hear from, actually, this idea that interested me was always the fact that kind of the same issues that plague us with Black theater plagues the Latin theater community as well. I don't know if KO or Juan, you want to speak on that at all, but I just wanted to learn more about that as well, because I don't think it's something that we inherently think about all the time too. Like, because, oftentimes, I feel like no matter how much we try to help it, we're so tunnel vision sometimes, and it can feel like there's a monopoly per se on oppression, but exactly. And that's not, of course, that's not the truth, and that's not the way we want to feel, but sometimes it always feels like we're in our own lanes when we're really in this together. I don't know, I was just really curious about you guys.
I'm going to speak before Juan does.
I couldn't get it. Okay, go.
I feel like I've had that tunnel vision that you mentioned, Julian, because I've grown up in this area my entire life. I live right in the middle, so I can stretch my arm out and be in El Paso, Texas, or stretch my other arm out and be in Las Cruces, New Mexico, in this Hispanic community. I had never, up until just the past 9 months, 10 months, had never realized what it's like to be the other, because I feel like I've been sheltered almost. And thinking back about it, like growing up in school, my parents never wanted to teach me Spanish because they didn't want me to be made fun of or like have people give me a hard time for being bilingual. And even in school, they made all the kids, and even if you spoke Spanish, you had to be in an English speaking class. You had to be forced to learn English. And looking back, I didn't realize how oppressed that was, how evil that was for kids in this community to be forced to be a certain way, and how I was shoved into that, but not knowing. And then even in the past year where I had to go for another job in another state, I definitely felt like I had no place in this world because I was the different one. And I endured so many ignorant comments made to me because of the way I pronounced my name, because I use Spanglish sometimes in my sentence, because where I came from. I've had for the first time in my life experienced someone say, "But where are you from?" No, but really, where are you from? Just because I'm from New Mexico doesn't make me like I'm from Mexico, or just because I say I'm Hispanic doesn't mean that everyone in my family is an immigrant. Like it put me in this box that I never really knew I was in until I left this area. And I think looking back on this show, but other shows that I've done, like just kind of expanding my horizons on, I guess, the topic of race and embracing who you are. I think I'm barely learning what it's like to be a person of color, and being able to voice that and share my experiences to help others see that, hey, what you said is actually offensive, and I would like to have a conversation about it. And I'm barely getting started.
Yeah, going off of what Karina said, I mean, living in El Paso my entire life, I mean, we are the minority majority here. There's, I don't know the total percentages, but I mean, everyone around here is brown, and I think just like how Karina said, I mean, my mom wanted us to speak only English because she didn't want us to be held back, which is why, I mean, I barely speak any Spanish because of that. And it's kind of sad because I felt like through that, I've kind of lost a little bit of my heritage, a little bit of my culture, because I was trying to be like more Americanized, but I didn't even know what that was because I mean, I lived here. It wasn't until I got into college and I was on the speech and debate team and started traveling all over the US. And that's when it was like a huge wake up call. You know, I was going to the Midwest and, you know, sitting down in an Applebee's and just everybody just looking at me. And I'm like, whoa, what something on my shirt or, you know? So it was a huge, like wake up call that this is like super prevalent. And I was fortunate enough to be born in a city where it's normal and it's okay to, you know, be brown. And I mean, it's what it is. And we have the military base here, so there is a pretty big Black community as well as a white community. So there's it's a melting pot here. But I think that like even traveling over to Las Cruces, I think that like we do lose a little bit of that just because it's not as prevalent. Like the color isn't as like as prevalent, but I think that we're kind of like moving in that direction where, like, you know, I've done theater here for like 8 years, and every show that I've ever done, I mean, they were like quote unquote white shows, but we didn't have the white cast to pull it off. So, you know, they casted Latinos, they casted African Americans, they casted the minorities, and they were directed by, you know, I've had directors that were Hispanic. I've had Keith Townsend. He was my director at EPCC, and he was the one that really pushed me to kind of like to kind of do this theater and, you know, to keep going, because he was giving me opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I was anywhere else. So I'm fortunate to live where I am, but I know that if it's anywhere else, I mean, we need to put in that work, and we need to, you know, it's time for the system that has been put in for centuries. You know, it's times are changing. You know, there's people that want those opportunities and want to be in those roles and want to be able to relate to things that aren't just for, you know, the white community or you know, it's just something that, like, I love to do this stuff, and I want to be able to relate to like a Latino character, you know, something like that. So I think that's kind of that's where my, you know, my story lands, I guess.
I'd like to ask Veronica a question. It's such a problematic situation that there's also this like level of whiteness within that is like discussed. So I respect like Amara's like bashing down the concept. There's this level of whiteness within minorities as well, and like a diminishing that happens in that respect, or like a you're not Black enough, you're not Hispanic enough, you're not whatever within those communities as well. And I know Veronica and Justin both have spoken publicly in front of me about their experiences of being like partly Hispanic, but, you know, having that like negated or, you know, like passing or whatever, even unintentionally, like what does that mean? So I'm just curious if Justin or Veronica want to speak about like what that feels like, or any thoughts with regard to how do you feel in that respect?
Well, for me, it's very interesting to be considered white, which I am. My dad is white, my mom is Hispanic, but to also just be raised very white in this community. I know one of the things that I've said before, and that my mom has said before, is that she and I were never given the opportunity to really embrace our Hispanic side. Her parents didn't teach their children Spanish, and so it just didn't get passed down, and so it didn't really get appreciated. Although she and definitely I as well have grown to appreciate that side of ourselves. But I mean, even I catch myself being racist against my Hispanic side, which makes no sense. But that's sort of how it's treated in this community, you know? It's highly prevalent, but our community is racist against our our Latino community. That doesn't make sense to me, but it happens. And I have caught myself doing that to my own self, which again, doesn't make sense. How can you be racist against who you are? But it happens. It's a really weird and terrible thing. And I know for myself, I'm trying to take all of this very seriously and learn for my own benefit to appreciate myself, but then also to be conscious of everybody else and their experience in our community. So it's been really great to just be able to sit and listen and hear and take notes and find ways to continue to grow within myself. So thank you guys all for your openness and honesty.
So would you feel comfortable, this is a weird question, I'm just curious to hear what you think about it. Like, would you feel comfortable playing a Latina? Do you feel comfortable playing a Latina?
I don't know. I don't know if I could answer that. I don't, honestly, in many ways, no. I don't think that my experience growing up translates well into the Latino community. I am very white, just with how I was raised and just how everything played out with my family. It's very white. So I don't think I would want to, because I don't want to be offensive to somebody else's experience. I think that's my fear. That's everybody's fear, right? We don't want to be offensive. And so I don't know if I could do it truthfully. I don't know if I could do it without feeling, just without feeling that fear of not doing it right, I guess.
That's really deep, because it comes down to, because you could easily, say, yes, I'm comfortable with that at the same time, and it'd be totally okay. And, that's where it really just comes down to the integrity of yours. And for you to like be okay with that, it's probably like relieving you of maybe anything that will come at you if you did choose to take that in certain spaces. Like I would say, like in a I don't know, it's really, this is where it gets kind of complicated and personal and convoluted, especially when you look at different ways that we discriminate within our own races and demographics. And I was also thinking about, colorism and all of this stuff, and just even, looking at my roles and the things that I've casted in Las Cruces, where although like, I try to be really, really inclusive, but every Black actress, for instance, that I know in Cruces is mixed race, and light-skinned. And then the only one Black actress that I knew is in Tucson now. And so, the next time that I do something, am I going to have the budget to possibly try to bring in that person? And there's so many levels to this that kind of get deeper. And usually that question kind of exploded for me, because now with my works being seen just on a bigger scale, it's different. It's being seen in Las Cruces because it's like, okay, yeah, these are the people, these are the actors that we know here, and this is what's available to us. Now if the work is being seen, in a bigger demographic, then these questions will arise, definitely.
I think one of the complications, even from a casting perspective, like thinking as a director or producer, is that, were I casting something where there was a Latina, and knowing, Veronica, for example, your background, I think I feel comfortable because we have a pre-existing relationship where I would ask you. But like, if I was holding an audition for an all Latina play and you showed up, it becomes this very difficult thing of like, well, shit, like I can't tell what she, like, why is this white girl at this audition? But then it's like, but then you also like, there are people who are full-blown Mexican as Mexican can be that look as light as can be. So it's like, well, this is where it gets really complicated. And I feel like maybe from a casting perspective, one of the things we could do to help that process is like on an audition form, ask like, do you identify as a Latina? Or are you, you know what I mean? Because if someone can say, like, I mean, of course they could lie as well, but at least there's some level of something like asking that question to prevent discomfort on the parts of any involved parties in a play. Not because it's shameful to portray a Latina at all, but like, I wouldn't want to play a Latina because I want a Latina to play a Latina.
Yeah. And that's where I think like just knowledge of what people look like. I remember one time I was like talking with Josh or something. We were at a whole table and all of us, you know, it was a real melting pot of a table. And I was like, oh man, it was this idea of a play. I think we were probably talking about In the Heights. And I was like, oh man, all of us could be in it. All of us could be Dominican if we wanted, you know? And then somebody was like, no, what? You guys don't look Dominican or something like that. And I was like, yo, Dominican's black as hell, man. Are you kidding me? Just because Lin-Manuel did the show doesn't mean that's like the blanket of it, you know? But we don't have the or I guess the majority of people's, or I would say even American audiences don't have the knowledge that, you know, everybody's everywhere.
Casting based just on look is getting more and more difficult, right? Because we are in this country a melting pot of races. So you can't assume somebody's experience based on just how they look anymore. That's just not going to work. So yeah, so then that becomes a factor into the entire conversation as well, you know?
It brought back the memory of why I really didn't pursue theater. I was interested as a kid. So in the 6th grade, I got cast as Brutus in our like school production of Caesar, you know, Julius Caesar. And I had like this big old part. And it was being directed by one of the Hispanic teachers, Miss Alvarez. And so she really didn't like, you know, like have like a type that she wanted. She just wanted kids that could maybe memorize all their lines or whatever. And so I got cast in it and I really enjoyed it. And I had a lot of fun. And I thought this would be cool. And then I saw an open cast call for The Sound of Music. And like, I had a horrible experience with that. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged there. When I went to the audition and stuff, like, didn't, you know, understand, like I had never been in that situation. And it was just kind of like, and so I got scared of theater and I didn't return until Megan cast me in Shrek, which was like 25 years later.
Super dope. Wow.
Janet,
That's what's up. See what you're doing, Megan?
Huh?
Props to Janet Beatty Payne.
Yeah. And Megan.
Oh, frankly, I think there have been times when we've made choices in casting. So like we do a minority-based play, but then we're like, well, this person's actually the minority, but this person isn't a very good actor. And like, so I need to cast this other person who maybe isn't that ethnicity because the play needs to be better. And it's like, no, the play is made better by people's experience being able to be shared, and that person becomes a better actress by getting that opportunity. Like, part of the systemic racism is not the fact that the person hasn't had that opportunity in the first place. Like, make it right.
Chicano theater is being done in El Paso, Texas. I would love to see more El Pasoans collaborate with Cruces so that they can work together to become beyond inclusive but embracing of Black and Chicano, Black, Latinx, etc. communities. As far as Chicano theater, Los Actors in El Paso has done some fantastic work. Yes, like connecting the communities is such a large part of the conversation, and it's so incredibly necessary. And so then our task is to create new spaces and to, like, I hear, you know, we don't have the actors and the creative team to put on the show. So what does it look like to commission a playwright? You know, what does it look like to commission Georgina Escobar to write a show for the 2 Latinx students in your school? It's work, but they deserve the same opportunities and the same chance to tell stories and to develop their voice, their very unique voice, as their white counterparts.